Mikey, thank you for taking the time. I know I was first on your calendar, but we know what's going on in our nation today, and so for you to really prioritize this, it means the world to all of us.
Thank you.
So thank you. So we're just going to start. We kind of covered some of the questions that we have, but maybe we'll dive a little bit deeper in, and I've been lucky enough to hear your story in the last few years, so I know the answer to this question, but for the rest of the audience, who would you say was your biggest influencer in your life?
So obviously, as I mentioned a little bit in my speech, my grandfather had a huge influence over my desire to serve in the military and to fly. I would say, though, that my mom had a big influence as well. She went back to work when I was 11 years old, and full disclosure, I was horrible about it. I tearfully told her stories of latchkey children and how important it was to have her there. And yet, I will tell all of those guilty moms out there that I think the role model that she has been for me has been hugely influential. And then when I went on, she ended up at Siemens as a government contractor and worked closely with the Air Force. And as I went into serving in the Navy, she was really a touchstone for me because she had dealt with so many military members and really at that time she had worked very much in an industry dominated by men, and I worked in the Navy, an industry very much dominated by men. So I think her actually going back to work probably provided us just a deeper connection as we've grown older. She now helps out in my office.
Yes, so. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mikey, as a mother of four, a wife, a congresswoman, how do you balance it all?
Well, I'm sure I'm speaking to the choir when I tell you that you never really figure out how to balance. And I have spent time on maternity leave when I was a stay-at-home mom and feeling completely overwhelmed and like I wasn't getting everything done. And I have spent time at kind of full-time around-the-clock jobs, and then I've spent the time at 9-to-5 jobs, and then I'm spending the time now in a job where I commute back and forth. And I have never cracked that code. I will tell you, I just, the nice part about now is my husband is now kind of been dragged into some of the kids' activities more, and so I feel like now we have a little bit more to talk about this. I think in the past I'd be like, it's just so hard, and you'd be like, just sign them up and get a carpool. And I gotta tell you, I felt a little underappreciated at times. But I got a text when I was down, luckily I'm in district for these 2 weeks, but I was down in Washington last week, and I got a text from my husband. We need to talk. The soccer schedule is ridiculous. So it's a constant work in progress, I guess, is the short answer.
And you're lucky to have the help of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the great family that you have. So you talked about being one of very few women when you were in the Naval Academy. What were your experiences and how did you navigate the ship? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
So, you know, I was very lucky. I was put on an aircraft carrier when I was a midshipman. We would go out to sea over the summer to do training and see the fleet and help us determine our service selection. So I went on an aircraft carrier, which when an aircraft carrier is deployed, it has 5,500 people aboard. And there were women on and off it, but you know, for a little bit there, maybe about a week, I was the only woman on that ship, which luckily it was fine. I remember my mom, you know, and I'm not sure who made that decision. It all worked out great, but my mom saying, "Don't get on that ship." And I said, "Mom, they're called orders for a reason. I have to go on this ship." And I'm sure if I had said something to somebody, it would have been cleared up. But I think just working very hard to build connections with people. And I do think that kind of experience, not just with serving aboard a ship that had all men, but serving aboard a ship with people, like I said, from all different backgrounds across our country. We have people, of course, that are from every state in the nation. And to really kind of build connections with people from very different backgrounds, I think has been a wonderful life skill. And something that I worry a little bit about our country now. We don't have a universal draft. We have a lot of people that kind of seem to only build relationships with people that are like them, or, you know, and I think that instead sometimes of opening up our world, social media has allowed us to narrow our world and find those people that think like us. And I think it's really critical that we broaden the people we hear from, and that's why I have said many times that I think the 11th District of New Jersey is a place where the nation can really learn how to navigate this new world. I say that because we're the most densely populated state in the nation, so we can't be very insular. We have people in New Jersey from all different backgrounds, from all over the world, and then we have people that work in business that has contacts all over the world. So I do think we are a less insular place than most, and I think it, I remember when I worked at the U.S. Attorney's Office, my boss used to say, it's pretty remarkable for how diverse New Jersey is and how densely populated New Jersey is, that we don't have the amount of hate crimes that you see elsewhere, that we all kind of learn to navigate this with each other, and I think it's an important lesson for the nation.
That's a really great point. Thank you.
I'm pretty high on New Jersey.
Yeah. I think we're all with you.
Yeah.
So when the committee was talking about what kind of questions to ask you and things like that, one of the things we were wondering is, you had a very unorthodox view of where you wanted to be as far as a little girl, right? You wanted to be a Navy pilot. That was, and you knew that from a young age. What would you tell us as parents when our children come up with this dream that might be a little non-traditional, and how to support that, and how to know that it's their dream and not our lane that we want to keep them in? So.
I think the hardest part for me as a parent is wanting to protect my child, and so wanting to some ways manage their expectation, and I have to really hold myself back sometimes and allow them to kind of really try for things that I might think are a little outside of their grasp. And I'm saying this because my daughter ran for president of her, I think, 5th grade class. And there were about 8 people running for president of her 5th grade class. And I really was worried about her ability to win this race, and I was worried that it would hurt her feelings if she didn't do it, and I really wanted to manage her expectations, but then I told myself, I gave myself a pep talk and said, no, this is great, I think she's putting herself out there, and I think that's wonderful. And so I said to her, I said, Maggie, I just think it's wonderful that you're doing this. This is really, really great, and I'm so proud of you, and even if you don't win, like the fact that you are going for this, and you're really putting yourself out there like this, I'm just so proud of you. And she looks at me and she goes, you don't think I'm going to win, do you? And I thought I was being so good. And you know what? She didn't win. But honestly, and she told me, and this was she goes, I think it was just a popularity contest. Because she thought she had a great platform. But I will say, I thought it was a great experience for her. And I think that's what we have to do as parents is kind of allow our children to fail. That's the hardest thing, right? Is that we never want our kids to fail. And yet, I'm sure many of you feel the same way. In my failures, I've learned some of the greatest life lessons. And we need our children to be able to manage failure and to be able to move past it and keep pushing and keep trying for new things. And that's what I have to walk myself back from, is wanting to just kind of wrap them in plastic and just, have like this safe environment.
Great suggestions too. So as your constituents, you're in a room full of your constituents, how can we help you? How can we help you in your role as our congresswoman and anything else that you see that we need in the 11th district?
So I feel so lucky because so many of you have already been helping me. As I look around the room, I see people who I've gone to for healthcare advice, for community advice, for all different jobs that we have here and how we grow our economy, how we grow our infrastructure, how we grow small businesses, how we grow small Hispanic businesses or small minority businesses or small women-owned businesses. So these are all things that I've talked to so many of you, and I feel so lucky because I will talk to, there is not an issue that I think has come up that I can't find someone in the district who is an expert on that. And I know that's not happening elsewhere. Sometimes when I sit down with people to talk about some incredibly innovative business that they're running and how they're getting venture capital for it, who they're talking to and how they're starting it up, I don't think this is happening in, you name the state, you know? It's all happening right here, so that's been wonderful. I also think keeping engaged. You know, I'm looking around, you're doing it. You're engaged, you're listening to what I say, you're probably thinking, okay, I'm gonna, send an email because I agree with this or I don't agree with that or she needs to focus on this. That's democracy. And I think that's what we've been so lucky to have here in the 11th District is so many people participating in our democracy. And I'll tell you, it is a dream come true for me because growing up, the people that were engaged were Vietnam vets. There are people that didn't want to have the Vietnam War, or people that were activated because of the Vietnam War, and because at the same time, kind of the civil rights movement engaged in that. And I always thought, oh my gosh, what is our fight? What are we going to do as a generation? And we're just not going to get engaged in the same way because we don't have the draft. And yet I've seen crowds come out just to advocate for gun safety legislation or to advocate for women. And just, thousands of people on the Morristown Green, which maybe your husband wants us to come back and do. He's kind of mad they trampled the grass last time. But just, thousands of people coming out and really showing their dedication to our country and their commitment to our values and their engagement and their belief that they can make a difference, that they could go and register their views and make a difference in our country. And I've been so incredibly thrilled to see that here.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Mikie. Those are the questions that we had as a committee for you, so thanks for sharing with us. We're actually going to open it up now for some Q&As from the audience. We have 2 mics on either side of the room. You got Casey over here, and you've got Monica. Just raise your hand for me. Monica's over here. So just raise your hand, and they will get to you.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Colleen. I had a question for you. You're in the House, a very large chamber. As a freshman congresswoman, do you feel like you are is your voice being heard, given that large of a House? And are you having the impact that you were hoping to have in that role as a freshman congresswoman?
So I've been very lucky. I am on one of the more difficult committees to get on as a freshman was House Armed Services, and I really advocated strongly. Picatinny Arsenal is one of the largest employers in our district, and with my background, I felt like that would be a great place for me to weigh in. And so I was lucky to be appointed to the Armed Services Committee. I'm also on Science, Space, and Technology, and I have I'm chairwoman of a subcommittee, which, to be frank with you, I don't think I understood the value of that when I was first appointed as chairwoman. But so Science, Space, and Technology is one of those committees that has a really broad purview. It's a lot like Energy and Commerce. And the old chair of Energy and Commerce, Representative Dingle, used to say, if it moves, it's energy. If it doesn't, it's commerce. He felt like he covered everything. Well, Science, Space, and Technology covers quite a lot. And as the chairwoman of the Oversight Committee, I have the ability to call hearings on so many things that we care about here. So I have already held hearings on infrastructure resilience, how to build our new infrastructure when we have floods, when we have Superstorm Sandy, et cetera, and make sure we can build the right kind of infrastructure. I've had hearings on election security and how we make sure the 2020 election infrastructure is secure. I've had hearings on scientific integrity and making sure that the science that we see coming out of the EPA is science that we can count on. Chemical safety boards, which are important in New Jersey because of some of the plumes we have and some of the rollbacks we've seen and some of that. So I have been able, with that chairmanship, to really bring attention to some of the issues that I went to. In fact, next week, I'll be holding a field hearing on here in New Jersey on lead in the water. So that gives me a great platform. Beyond that, I'll say too, I would say the 11th District, and again, you guys know I'm a little biased about the 11th District, epicenter of the world. I would say that the 11th District is really a bellwether for our nation, and you know, we're kind of on those front lines of where our nation is headed, and I think that's also something that leadership thinks. And so they are very concerned about our district and making sure that people here are well served. And so that has given me a louder voice as well.
My name is Kristen Capadona with H&M Architects and Engineers. Within the chamber, I chair the Young Professionals Committee. So on behalf of the Young Professionals that are here today, as somebody who at such a young age knew that they wanted to serve, what tips do you have for young people that are interested in serving their communities?
Well, that's a great question. You know, it's going to sound a little counterintuitive because I knew from a very young age that I wanted to go into the military, and so part of my success was because I knew I wanted to do that. So I had a long time to focus on it and develop, you know, what I needed to reach my goal. But I will also say on the flip side, one of the best lessons I learned was when I turned down a job. I had very particularly in my mind what I wanted to do when I left the U.S. Attorney's Office. I'm sorry, when I left my law firm, I was looking at several jobs, and I thought I wanted to go practice law, and I wanted to be on cutting edge cases, and I wanted to do it a particular way. And a friend of mine offered me a job at a nonprofit for what we call in-house counsel. They're a lawyer in the nonprofit. And I said no, because that wasn't what I was looking to do. I had a particular thing I wanted to do. Well, then I kind of thought more about it. I thought of how interesting that group was and what they were doing and how it will work out really well for various reasons. And I went back to him and I said, you know, that was a pretty interesting opportunity. I'd like to talk to you more about it. And he said, yeah, it's a really interesting opportunity, which is why we filled that job last week. Like, you know, we can't talk about it. He said, yeah, you would have been great. And so the next time that happened, the next time I was offered, you know, I went to interview for a job. It was at the U.S. Attorney's Office, and I wanted to be a federal prosecutor. But they weren't hiring. They were in a federal hiring freeze. But the U.S. Attorney said to me, you know, we really like you, and we'd like to hire you. We can hire you as a contract worker, as an outreach and reentry coordinator. And my initial gut reaction was, that's not what I want to be. I want to be a federal prosecutor. But luckily, having that previous experience, I said, that sounds really interesting. Let me think about it. Let me find out more. And the more I talked about it, and the more I understood the job, the more interested I was. And so then I said, sure, you know, I'd love to do that. And that was my first job at the U.S. Attorney's Office. I later became a federal prosecutor. But I think I think sometimes you just have to be open to possibilities. You can't get yourself so narrowly focused on a particular set of circumstances that you miss some of the other opportunities that might come along. That would be my advice to anybody starting out, or anybody really in business.
Hello, Mikey. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your service. My name is Maria Ferris. I've got a personal question. My daughter wants to be in West Point. She's a junior in high school. For the past 2 years, you know, we go there, camp, we go visit. We have no experience in the military world. If she was your daughter, what would you tell her?
So, that's great. I think if you're going to attend any one of the academies, you really have to want to do that. It's not for everyone, as you can imagine. So I would tell her to do community service, serve the community, get used to serving your country and your community, get in shape. The more she runs, the better she'll be.
Cross country, 100%.
And then definitely, I got a book at the time. Now I'm sure there's ways to go online. It's as you know, a very involved process. And so it involves doing applications through your congressman or through your senators and application. And so just, try to find either if there's still a book, or I'm sure there's chat rooms now and, online that you can go and figure out how to do it, and then get in touch with our office, because we have information centers and stuff like that. But
Has a mother.
oh, as a mother? Yeah, it's a very unique decision to make, even more unique for women. I think at the time I was at the academy, my graduating class, under 10% of my class was women. Right now, I think they're at about a quarter of the classes are women. So I just think the more exposure she has to West Point, if she can go spend a weekend there and really see what it's like, but you really can't understand what it's like until you're there. And I think you just have to make sure she knows that this is, as much as she can about what she's starting to do, but then also is willing, and this goes for anybody who enters the academy, is also willing to say at some point, if it's not the right place for them, that they have other opportunities, because it's a huge commitment. And if you find that you don't want to make yourself miserable or become depressed or something like that. But it sounds like she's doing all the right things to really educate herself what that's like. But I'll tell you, somebody said to me before I went, well, it's all guys, like how are you going to feel about that? And I said, oh, I have friends that are guys in high school. That was not what it was like. It really was a very different experience. And I think it certainly taught me a lot, but it is a very different experience. Thanks.
Monica?
Hi, my name is Sandy Stiles, and I work at Planned Parenthood, so I appreciate your support. So you're talking about some of the challenges you've had and your experiences in the story you just shared. Let's talk about you as a congresswoman. What challenges have you had, and how have you overcame them, both personally and professionally, if you don't mind?
Sure. So as I kind of alluded to in one of our questions, personally, the challenge is always organization, right? Just getting everybody organized, and I don't think I have overcome that. I think that will always be a work in progress. I am lucky right now, my oldest is in 8th grade. I am a little nervous about high school next year and how we're going to be set up to go into that. But I think somebody gave me the advice early on that if you're going to run for Congress, try to bring in your family as much as possible. Try to get them as engaged as possible. And it's always a tough line to walk because I don't want to make my kids miserable, right? Like spending all weekend going canvassing, but I do want them exposed to it, and I do want them to feel like they're part of it. So I've tried to find that balance. I've brought them down to Washington. They did 2 weeks of camp down in Washington when I was down there. So I've tried to engage them as much as possible, and hopefully get a sense of that. And I'll tell you just, I would love to imbue in them a sense of responsibility to our country. And that doesn't mean I anticipate they'll ever run for anything, but just they should get involved in other people's campaigns if they're not running. They should just know who's running for town council and knock on doors and just make sure they're part of the democracy. And that's something I would like them to see me model. And then as far as the professional challenges, I will say having the kind of life experience I've had has been helpful. You're trained in the military to make tough decisions under tough circumstances. You do these survival training drills when you're out in the middle of a mountain and it's 65 below with wind chill. I'm thinking of this mountain in Maine I was on, and you're trying to make decisions and you're getting the group and stuff. So so Congress doesn't, some of the stuff, I remember somebody saying something about making a really hard decision and just thinking, this is not a really hard decision. So to some extent, I think just staying grounded and focused on what you have to do for your district and your country really makes some of what might seem hard districts, given some pressure from different forces, not that hard, because you just keep that focus. I have been very lucky too, because I entered Congress with one of the largest freshman classes that we've had since Watergate. And so, I've said before, I get the impression that sometimes freshmen enter Congress and you're kind of expected to, sit quietly, listen. Maybe in 5 years you can put forward a bill or something. That was not what I feel like you sent me to Congress to do. I think there's a sense that our Congress isn't functioning as well as we want it to, and so I don't think we were all sent there to just sit quietly and wait for Congress to begin functioning well. We are, I think the freshman class was sent to Washington to help our country function better. In our district, I think most of us think that means good bipartisan legislation, reaching across the aisle, stopping some of the partisan battles that go on in Washington. And so luckily I enter Congress with a lot of other people from districts like ours who very much want Congress to work well and to get good things done for their districts. And as far as, not everybody cares as deeply as I do about the state and local tax deduction cap. I think we do. Not everybody outside of New Jersey. And that is an issue I am relentlessly focused on, as is the rest of the delegation. But it is, there is broad concern across the country about healthcare and infrastructure. So those are things that there's not a consensus necessarily of how we move forward, but there is a consensus in the caucus that we've got to address those critical issues. And so there are a lot of partners to work with on those issues as well. I just want to thank everyone. I will tell you, again, people in Washington may say I'm biased, but I don't think I am. This district is fantastic. It is just, there are just so many people that are engaged. There are people with such a diverse array of opinions. I'll tell you, I have people coming into my office all the time who don't agree necessarily with a position I've taken, but they come in to talk to me about it. They don't come in to berate me. Some of them are even coming in to talk to me and they'll probably never vote for me, but they want to take time because they care about the country and they care about where we're headed, and so they take time to come talk to me about what their concerns are. And that just means so much, I think, to see people really being thoughtful about where we're headed and wanting to build those bridges and wanting to really have a discussion. Not to just have a soundbite or a talking point or just a vent, but really wanting to have a discussion about the critical things we need to do in this country. And so I can't tell you what a real honor it is to serve this district and the people of the 11th District. So thank you all so much.
Thank you for being with us.
Morristown.